Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Study Different Majors in the USA series. Today, we're going to focus on study public relations in the United States. My name is Hani, and I'm the Education USA advisor in the Czech Republic. And today, I have a special guest, Sydney, who is going to talk about her experience with studying public relations major in the United States. Hello, Sydney. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So we can go ahead and start it.
Just to introduce myself a little bit, hi, I'm Sydney Leiter. I am currently a Fulbright English teaching assistant in Levice, Slovakia. I'm originally from Florida in the United States, but I attended the University of Georgia for both my graduate and undergraduate education. So I got my bachelor's degrees in public relations, which we're going to talk about today, and sociology, and I did my master's degree in nonprofit management and leadership. So just to start with kind of an overview of what public relations is, and I'm probably going to end up calling it PR a lot. That's the abbreviation. So just don't want to get anybody confused there. So PR is really managing how others see and feel about a person or an organization and attempting to create a positive reputation. So this involves a lot of writing, working with the media. So that could be traditional media outlets like newspapers and magazines, online media like social media, or broadcast. So a lot of TV stuff too. Graphic design, social media, as well as cultural awareness. So something that's, I think, really cool and really special about PR is that it exists in every industry. So you can really combine PR with whatever you're passionate about. So, for example, I got my master's in nonprofit management. I'm really interested in working for a nonprofit. So I could go down the path of doing PR for a nonprofit. Or if you're interested in politics, you could do political PR. If you like fashion, you can do PR for a fashion company. So there's a lot of really cool ways to combine PR with whatever else you're interested in. So a little bit of background about me and what I did in high school that helped me get into college in the US. And a lot of things that are on this list are kind of specific to the US. So you guys will do different applications as international students. So for example, we have GPAs, grade point averages in the US, and that's not really a thing other places. So you won't have to necessarily worry about that. But yeah, so when I was in high school, I had a strong grade point average. I took 12 AP classes, advanced placement classes, which really just kind of looked impressive on my application and made me stand out a little bit. I had a good attendance record, which is something that's also really stressed in the US. And I was pretty involved at my school. So I played lacrosse for all 4 years of high school. And my senior year, I was put in a leadership position. So I was the captain of the team. I was in my school's art club for all 4 years. And again, I was in a leadership position. So I served 2 years as the treasurer of the club. And volunteering is something that's really important in the United States. And most high schools do require it because, again, it looks really good on college applications. So I did over 400 hours of service at both local organizations and international organizations. So this picture is of me at Flamingo Gardens, which was one of the nonprofits I volunteered with a lot. It was a local nature preserve.
Guys who are watching us today, this is what Education USA advisors are for. If you need help with your application, if you need help with just going through the application process, please let me know, let us know. As I am happy to show you what to put where, how to boost your application with what you have, what kind of opportunities you have in the Czech Republic. And if you reach out to me earlier, a little bit like in your like, let's say, sophomore or junior year at high school, I am happy to encourage you to take certain classes or do something meaningful throughout the summer so that it looks very good on your application. So this is what the Education USA centers, advising centers are for, to help you go through and navigate the application process to the United States.
So this is the list of colleges that I applied for, or applied to. So I applied to 7 universities. So I applied to the University of Georgia, which is where I ended up going, University of Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, Duke, Wake Forest, and Williams College. So kind of how I ended up with this list. Originally, when I was applying for college, I was interested in studying either journalism or international affairs. So I was really looking at schools that had strong programs for one or both of those majors. And ultimately, I got to University of Georgia and I changed my mind a bunch of times and didn't end up doing journalism or international affairs. But I did, when I was making this list of colleges, I also made sure that they were well-rounded universities. So I knew if I did change my mind, I would still be able to find a really good program at any of these schools.
Sydney, do you remember, how did you research those schools? How did you come up with your college list?
So also part of it was my family. So my dad actually went to the University of Georgia. My mom went to the University of North Carolina for her undergrad and then did her graduate school at University of Virginia. And I had visited UVA, University of Virginia, a lot because my oldest brother also went there. So I had a lot of family connections to those first 3 schools. Maryland, I was interested in because it had a really strong journalism program, and the location is close to Washington, D.C., which is one of my favorite places in the United States. So that kind of attracted me to that. Duke and Wake Forest were kind of my like reach schools. So I wanted to apply to more selective universities as well, just to kind of like see where I could get into. So that's how those 2 ended up on the list. And Williams College is like a really small liberal arts school in Massachusetts. And I think I found out about them through either my high school or they sent me something in the mail.
Okay. That's really cool. And I'm sure, like, as you're going to talk about, you consider location and so forth, but for you guys, when you're looking at your college list, I advise you to use Big Future website from College Board, because you can type your priorities there, such as the major you are interested in, or the location you would like to study, or the type of school, exactly, if you prefer a bigger school or a smaller school, and it shows you all the schools that would have a journalism major in undergrad and are located in Florida, state. So definitely, but this is really interesting list. Did you get into all of these?
Oh, now I'm trying to remember. I know I definitely got into the first 4 on the list. I got into Wake Forest. I think I got waitlisted by Williams, and I definitely did not get into Duke.
Okay. Can you explain to our students what waitlisted means?
So waitlisting is usually like you didn't make it through the first round of applications, but they still thought you were a good candidate. So they put you on what's called the wait list. And then if students who did get accepted decide that they don't want to go to that school, they'll pull people off of the wait list and give them an offer of admission.
Okay. And did you send any early decision or early action applications?
I know I applied early to the first 4 again. Those were all on what's called the common application. So that's like a really convenient way to apply to universities. So I just wanted to get those done as soon as I could. And they didn't have what are called binding decisions. So you could apply early and get your response early, but that didn't mean that you had to attend that school.
For sure. So you guys, if you would like to do the same as Sydney, you're looking for early action admission because early actions are not binding. Whereas if the school has early decision, that only limits you to apply to one school. And if you get in, it's binding. You have to start the school. So just a little terminology, and sorry, you can go on.
Yeah, and I think the final three on the list, I applied regular decision, but I don't remember for sure.
That's okay.
Yeah, so another thing that I really took into consideration when I was making this list was location. I really wanted to stay on the East Coast of the United States. I'm from Florida. That's where my whole family lives. So I wanted to be fairly close so that I could go home easily for the holidays. My family could come visit me. And also, I'm from the South. I'm from South Florida. I don't do super well in the cold, so I focused mainly on southern states because I didn't want to be anywhere where it was going to be like too cold for me.
Was it somewhat beneficial for you maybe to apply to a school in Florida because of the in-state tuition?
Yes. It definitely it would have been beneficial, but I wanted to go out of state. My parents were kind of different than a lot of parents in the United States. A lot of parents do encourage us to stay in state because tuition is a lot less expensive that way. But my parents I have two older brothers, and they encouraged all three of us to go out of state because they wanted to make sure that we got different experiences and like met new people from different places and different backgrounds. So they really encouraged us to do that and were really supportive of it, and also helped us find different like scholarship opportunities to help with that tuition situation.
So for you guys, because who are listening, you are going to be international students, which that equals out of state tuition. If you're looking at those prices, you either find a price for international students or out of state because you cannot really count for in-state tuition. Yeah.
Kind of the final thing I took into consideration when I was choosing where to apply was I was mainly interested in large universities. So definitely the first four on my list were big public institutions. The final three were smaller, but they weren't. Williams is very small, but Duke and Wake Forest are small, but not like terribly small. And the reason I was focusing more on large schools is because there's this saying I heard that it's easier to make a big school feel small than a small school feel big. So this kind of means that when you're at a big school, there's going to be a lot of different people there from a lot of different places. There's going to be a bunch of student organizations and places to be on campus. So it's going to be pretty easy for you to find your place on campus because there is so much diversity and so many choices. So you can really find your niche and where you fit in. Whereas if you're at a smaller school, it could be a little more difficult because there are going to be fewer options. So that was just something that I was really thinking about. I really wanted to make sure that wherever I ended up, I was going to be able to find my place.
I would have a question because, when you say a big school, it has a completely different meaning when we're talking about the United States and the Czech Republic. So my question is, you said that you enrolled in the University of Georgia. So how big was your class? Like how many students or student-teacher ratio?
I think my graduating class at UGA was 6,000 students, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Most of the classes I took when I was at UGA were pretty small. So they were usually somewhere between 15 and 40 students. I would say like once I was actually in my major and I was taking classes for my major, the classes were usually around 20 people. But there definitely are some very large classes, especially like intro level or general education classes that you're required to take. So these could be somewhere between like 100 and 300 students.
It is big.
Yes. But I think I only took 2 of those really large lecture classes, and they were still on the smaller side. So I never really felt like I was in like a huge class where I was overwhelmed and like wouldn't be able to get help from the teacher if I needed it.
Great.
So some universities that have PR programs and are really well known for these programs are Washington University in St. Louis, the University of Florida, University of Southern California, University of Texas at Austin, New York University, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, University of Washington, Boston University, Lehigh University, which I want to say is in Ohio, but I'm not confident about that.
I think it's in Pennsylvania because I studied very close to Lehigh. I didn't study at Lehigh, I was in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's in that area somewhere. And UGA, which is where I went. And one thing about PR is that it's not always going to be its own major. A lot of schools do have it as its own major, but if you're interested in this or you're interested in a specific university and you don't see a PR major at that university, it might be worth it to look at the communications major or a journalism major, because a lot of schools have those majors with a PR emphasis or concentration rather than its own degree.
So, and is it like just a concentration or emphasis, or can you do it like a major and a minor? So have it as a minor?
I'm sure universities have it as a minor as well.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
So these are the classes I took for my PR major at UGA. So we had 6 required classes where you had to take these specific classes. And then we had 3, what I am choosing to call choice courses, because you were required to take these classes, but you had like options within them. And then we got to take 3 electives from the journalism college, which is where the PR program was housed. So this could be either other PR classes, advertising classes, journalism, or entertainment media studies. So we kind of had some choice within the major. So the required courses were really to try to give us experience in different areas of PR and also to just like really train us in the skills that are required for this profession. So introduction to PR just kind of explained what it was, what options exist within it, and everything that PR is about. There was a research, insights, and analytics class, which kind of taught us how to conduct research, specifically focusing on PR. And we actually completed our own research project so that we would know how to do that if our job eventually requires it. Foundations of graphic communication. So this was like the basics of Photoshop, how to make pretty graphics and how to really use visuals to tell a story. Public relations communications, that was just like how to write specifically for PR. PR has it has a very specific style of writing, and this class really just like trained us on how to write that way, and also gave us experience working for a client. So within this class, we got to pick either a organization or a business that we were going to be working with throughout the entire semester. And we were making actual like communications pieces for them that they would then be able to use at the end of the semester. So I was working with a nonprofit, and I wrote like a press release for them, a blog post, some social media posts. So it really just gave us like a wide variety of experience with different types of communications within PR, and also like learning how to work with a client.
You said, Sydney, that originally you were aiming for journalism though. So you could have gone undecided to a university and then you specialized by taking specific courses and like graduated as a PR major, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so did you take, because you also mentioned that you took some AP classes at high school. Did you take anything that was useful for you, in the PR education?
So I took two AP English classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I took AP English Language and AP English Literature. And both of those were really writing heavy classes. So going into college, I had kind of that experience with learning how to write and learning how to write for like a very specific goal. So I think that was helpful when it came to PR because I was already a pretty good writer and I already kind of knew how to shape my writing for a specific outcome, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I'm just wondering, if students want to do something extra before applying to school, and especially if they already know they would like to go into public relations, I wanted to give them an idea what to do an extra. So guys, take an AP class in English, writing or history. Good luck with that. All right.
Journalistic writing across platforms. So this was like an intro level journalism class that again just was like teaching us how to write and teaching us how to write for again a bunch of different outcomes. So we learned how to write like a traditional news story, a broadcast piece, how to interview people, because PR and journalism are very related. So having those like basic journalism skills was helpful in training us how to be good writers and knowing how to write for a bunch of different reasons. And the final required course was Principles of Marketing. So marketing and PR are also pretty similar. There's a lot of overlap. And a lot of times, especially at like nonprofits, for example, because they tend to be smaller, a lot of times PR practitioners are also doing marketing, or PR might be housed in the marketing department. So it was just kind of useful to have that like basic knowledge of marketing. And then for the choice courses, you could take either crisis communication or public relations management. I chose PR management, which was teaching us how to be leaders and how to use our PR skills to be good leaders within whatever company we're working for. I took PR ethics, diverse cultures, and cross-cultural communication over law of mass communication. And I chose this class because, again, I was interested in working for a nonprofit. So I thought knowing how to communicate ethically and with people from different backgrounds and doing it in a very like sensitive way could be really helpful for a career in nonprofits, because a lot of times you're working with people from different backgrounds and from different communities. And then the like big final capstone course of the PR degree is the public relations campaign class. So there were some different options within this category, but basically this class was the entire semester you were working on a group project with the entire class, and you were actually doing PR work for a client. So we had, again, my client was a nonprofit. So at the beginning of the semester, they came in and they told us what their goal was for their organization and how they saw us helping them. And then we spent the entire semester doing research and creating different social media graphics and fundraising ideas and like all different stuff. And we
It's having a job. It's like having a job while studying. Wow. Okay.
So that class was really like designed to show us what it will be like to actually work as
Mm-hmm.
a PR professional. And again, to just give us like the actual hands-on skill where we were doing everything. Like it really was like having a job.
Uh-huh. You just didn't get paid for it, right?
Yeah.
Great.
And then again, we got a choice of 3 electives from any department in the journalism school. So I took media, entertainment, and pop culture, environmental communication, which was teaching us how to communicate about different environmental issues, especially to people who don't have a background in science. And I took a fundraising class that was in the PR department because, again, I was interested in nonprofits, and fundraising is a huge part of nonprofits. And it really does go hand in hand with PR.
So you mentioned a lot of nonprofit here. So do you actually use your PR skills that you gain in your undergrad studies in nonprofit management, nonprofit organizations?
I would say yes. So after I finished my PR degree, I stayed at UGA and I did my master's in nonprofit management. And there were a lot of times in my classes where I was like, oh, I know how to do this because I took these PR classes. Or like I knew it was especially helpful in like the grant writing class I took because I knew how to write, and in the fundraising class that I took. And then when I was actually like working in nonprofits and doing nonprofit internships, I used PR a lot. So I did a lot of writing, a lot of graphic design, a lot of fundraising. So PR really did come in handy when I was doing nonprofit work.
And thus, did the rest of the class, that studied an undergrad with you, did they go to study graduate studies in PR, or did they go different ways?
So people went a lot of different directions after this. So a lot of people graduated with this degree and just immediately entered the workforce. So they graduated and got a job in PR. Some people did choose to do a graduate degree in public relations to really just like help them get more experience in it before entering the workforce. I know people who did this and then went to law school. I did this and then went to nonprofit management. People really took this degree and went so many different places with it.
That's what I'm interested in. And like, interesting that you mentioned that they went to law school, because I always thought that it's better to go to get a pre-law, at an undergraduate degree and then go to law school. But now you say that it's fine to get a PR degree and then you can get to law school, which is amazing.
And I would say that PR is probably pretty helpful for law school because there is so much communication involved with law. And PR, it's all about training you in how to communicate. So there's just so many things that you could do with a PR degree.
For sure. Yeah, that's what I wanted the students to hear, that you don't have to be stuck in that one thing, because communication is the key. And if you can really say, and if you can really talk with different group categories, and if you can speak in English, actually is very helpful. So PR is great, and then you can take a different route if you want. Yeah.
Definitely. That leads perfectly into the next slide. So job opportunities within PR. So if your public relations itself has kind of 4 traditional pathways within it. So there's PR agency, which is you are working for like a PR company, and other organizations hire the agency to do their PR work for them. So if you're working for an agency, you might get put on a job for a nonprofit or a company or a corporation, and then you're going to be working for them, but kind of from the outside. Corporate PR is you're actually going to be working for a company and doing their PR from within. Government there's a lot of different ways to do PR in the government capacity. So this could be like running a political campaign, working for a specific politician, or it could just be like working for a government agency. So if you're in the US, one of like the departments, so one of the cabinets, or in Europe, I think it's usually called ministries or ministers, so working in like some form of government agency. And there's nonprofit PR, which is working for a nonprofit and doing their PR for them. And that's usually going to include fundraising, maybe event planning, a lot of marketing. So nonprofit PR is going to be, it's usually going to be broader than the other categories. You could go into digital marketing or social media, because social media is becoming so important, and just like having a really strong online presence. A lot of companies will hire people specifically to do their social media. So this is especially like if you're interested in graphic design and if you're more artistic, this could be a really good path. Community relations. So this a lot of times is going to be you're working for a company or maybe a professional sports team, and you are building relationships between that company and the community it exists in. So maybe like the local schools or local nonprofits. So you're really working kind of as like an in-between from the company and the community and trying to create some form of bond there. You could become a full-time fundraiser if that's something you're interested in, because fundraising a lot is about communicating and being able to like talk to people. So that could be an interesting job opportunity. And then also event planning. I know quite a few people who went from their PR degree into planning maybe weddings or just events in general.
Oh, that includes a lot of communication and a lot of patience and understanding of those brides, and everything. So
yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So now I'm going to switch a little bit and tell you about life at a US university, and specifically at University of Georgia, which is where I attended. So a little about UGA. It is a pretty large university. So we had 40,000 students, including undergraduate and graduate. It's located in Athens, Georgia, which is known as kind of like an arts and music town in Northeast Georgia, really close to the South Carolina border. UGA is the birthplace of higher education. We were the first public university chartered in the United States. So that our school dates back to 1785. So it's a really historic, really cool place. Our motto is to teach, to serve, and to inquire into the nature of things. And we're really big on school spirit. That goes for a lot of universities in the United States, and I think UGA did it really well. So I wanted to include that our colors are red and black, and our mascot is the bulldog. So here are some pictures of our campus. This upper left picture is the arch. It's kind of the iconic landmark at UGA. It's the symbol of our university and the entire state of Georgia. The three pillars are for wisdom, justice, and moderation. And probably my favorite tradition at UGA involves the arch. So it's kind of a tradition to not walk under the arch until you graduate. And then once you do graduate, it's kind of this big, exciting moment where you line up with a bunch of other students and you finally cross under the arch for the first time.
It's not any bad luck if you accidentally walk through there, even during your studies.
So the story goes that if you walk under the arch before you graduate, then you won't graduate.
Oh, okay. So it is bad luck.
So that's the story. And a lot of people just like are too scared to go against it. And also it's just kind of like a fun thing to look forward to. But I know plenty of people who just like accidentally walked under it and they still graduated on time.
All right. Thank you.
This upper right picture is the journalism college. So that's the building where the PR major is housed. So most of my classes were in this building. It has this really nice outdoor area with like grass and some tables. So a lot of events were held there. And it was also just like a nice place to hang out and study. This bottom left picture is the Tate Student Center. So this is kind of the center of student life at UGA's campus. There were some restaurants in there, a cafe, a movie theater, an arcade, a lot of places to just kind of like hang out, get some food, see your friends. A lot of student organizations had meetings in there. So there's always stuff going on in that building. And it was always kind of fun to just like go in there and see what was going on.
What's an arcade?
Oh, it has like a bunch of video games.
Okay, is it like the playtime, where you can just relax and okay.
Yeah, so it was just like a little room and you could go in there and there were some like traditional video games and then also some more like old-fashioned ones that you could play. Okay. I only went in there a couple times, but it was really fun.
Okay.
And then this bottom right picture is the main library. So this is I think it's the biggest library on UGA's campus. It was my favorite one. It was my favorite place to study. It was always really quiet. There were a lot of different areas where you could kind of plant yourself and just crank out whatever paper or project you were working on. And there was also a cafe in there, so you could get coffee and a snack to help keep you going.
And is University of Georgia like all intact together? So you are like a small city inside of a bigger city. And if you don't want to, you actually don't have to leave the campus because everything is there?
So you could pretty much stay on campus and get anything you needed. If you were really trying to get like full groceries, you would need to leave campus. But we were really close to like downtown Athens. It was basically right across the street. So anything you couldn't get on campus, you could pretty much walk across the street and get it.
Oh, that's great because I know that many international students don't usually have cars. And I am pretty sure that, you guys, if you're going and you know that you don't have car, first of all, it's so close by. And second of all the Americans who do have cars, usually they will be so friendly and so helpful. I'm talking from my own experience. They usually gave me a ride to Walmart or to Target, and showed me around. So don't worry, this is amazing that it's so close.
Yeah, I didn't have a car my first 2 years at UGA, and I don't think it was ever once a problem. Like somebody was always either willing to take me where I needed to go. I could walk pretty much anywhere I needed. And UGA also has a really good bus system. So I was able to hop on a bus and either get around campus or even get to downtown Athens.
Nice. Good. It's really funny that the city is called Athens because, they usually is like, oh, are we in Greece? Yeah.
Yeah. And Georgia also has a city called Rome. So
okay.
I think the whole state, we were just like, let's name after historic cities, other places, I guess.
That's funny.
And dormitories. So this is going to be where you're living on campus. A lot of US universities require you to live on campus your first year. UGA does. And I lived on campus for 2 years. I really enjoyed it. UGA has 22 different dorms. Each one is kind of set up a little different. So whatever living situation you're looking for, you're probably going to be able to find it on UGA's campus. My freshman year, I lived in a dorm called Creswell. It's kind of like the traditional college dorm. So that's this upper right picture. I shared my room with one other girl, and then we had a communal bathroom. So it was in the hallway and the entire hall shared it, but it might sound a little intimidating, but it's not at all. It was cleaned every day. It was really big, so I never needed to wait for like a shower or a sink or anything. So I really enjoyed that dorm setup. And then my sophomore year, I lived on campus again, and that's this left picture in a dorm called Rutherford. So it was a similar setup where I shared a room with one other girl, but that year we had our own bathroom. So in our dorm, we had a private bathroom for just the two of us.
And were the dorms also like mixed gender that you could live with the boy, or was it just like girls together and boys together?
So within your actual room, it's just going to be like if you're a girl, your roommate is going to be a girl. If you're a boy, your roommate is going to be a boy. And in the dorms where you have a communal bathroom, your entire floor is going to be the same gender.
Okay.
So like the floor I lived on in Creswell, everybody was a girl. But within Creswell, there were like girls' floors and then there would be a boys' floor. So the dorm was co-ed, but then the floors weren't. And then in Rutherford, so when I had a private bathroom, my roommate was a girl and like everybody had a same gender roommate, but each room like was whatever. So I think in Rutherford, across the hall was boys, and I think next door was also boys.
Okay, yeah, cool.
So dining halls are also a really big part of college life in the US. UGA had 5 dining halls. You could get pretty much whatever type of food you wanted in these places. I thought the food was pretty good. I never really had a bad experience in the dining hall. And it was also like a fun place to hang out with your friends and maybe meet some new people, especially during like the lunch and dinner rush when there were a lot of people. You might end up just sitting with strangers, but people were always really nice and really open to talking to you. So it was kind of a fun experience to just like hang out in the dining hall.
And so do you have an experience if a person is a gluten-free or if he is a vegetarian, can this be accommodated at a dining hall or do they have to cook for themselves?
Those can definitely be accommodated. I know, especially for vegetarian, like the food would be labeled. And if you had like a food allergy, I think it would also be labeled. For something more restrictive, like gluten-free, the dining hall still had options for you, but I think sometimes you would have to like go to like a little room in the dining hall and like they would have a special meal for you and then you would take it and you would still be able to like sit in the common area with everybody else.
Okay, you didn't have to sit alone and eat it alone.
Yeah, you weren't like isolated, but you sometimes would have to like take an extra step to get your meal.
And I see that the bottom right corner is probably the dining hall, but upper right, it seems like restaurants, but can you use your meal plan to go to a restaurant or do you have to pay extra?
So there were kind of options when it came to the on-campus restaurants. So we also, in addition to the dining halls, we had a bunch of restaurants and cafes on campus. So the way our meal plans worked were like you would buy what were called swipes to get into the dining hall. And then you could also purchase what UGA called paw points. So that would be like money on your meal plan that you could use either for the dining hall or for the on-campus restaurants. But if you didn't have that, you could also just pay normally at these restaurants.
Okay, good.
So student life at UGA, this was definitely my favorite part of being a student there. We were such a huge university, so we had over 700 student organizations. Pretty much anything you're interested in, there is a club for it. And if you somehow found something that didn't exist on campus yet, you could also start your own student organization. And these were a really fun way to meet people and get involved on campus. Some of my best friends are people I met through student organizations. So the picture on this slide is from SWAB, Shop with a Bulldog. That was one of the organizations I was involved with for all 4 years. It was a student-run nonprofit where we partnered with the local schools and we would take children from Athens shopping for the holidays. So we would spend the entire year fundraising, and then we had a big event day where the students got matched up with the students from Athens got matched up with students from UGA, and we spent the day together. We would go to Walmart and had a budget, and they were able to pick out like toys and clothes and whatever else they wanted for the holidays. And it was just like a really fun day in the community, and the people in this organization were wonderful, and I had such a great time. It was
That's a wonderful event. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sports are also a really big thing, especially at UGA. We had different levels of sports. So there were what were called club sports. So that's going to be a little more competitive, but not at the level of like what you're seeing on TV. So usually it would be like there's a UGA team and then they're competing against other schools.
So is UGA a Division I school?
Yes. So our like televised sporting events are Division I, and then club is below that.
Okay. And I remember you mentioned you played lacrosse. Did you continue with sport at a university level?
I did not. I had
Okay.
kind of had enough after high school. And once I got to college, I decided I was just going to be a sports fan and not play anymore.
But you have or you know students who got into UGA with sports scholarship if they were playing, competitively and so forth.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't personally know anybody, but the
Mm-hmm.
people who were on like the really competitive Division I teams, they pretty much were all on scholarship.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Intramural sports are really casual, really laid back. It's usually like you and a group of friends, and you're competing against other UGA students. So
Mm-hmm.
that was just kind of like a casual way to be involved in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the Division I UGA sports, which are like the football, soccer, volleyball, things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
as a UGA student, you got to go to all of these events for free.
Mm-hmm.
Football, you did have to pay for, but it was only like $10 a ticket, which is a huge discount. So
Mm-hmm.
that was
Mm-hmm.
a really fun way to like enjoy UGA and show some school spirit.
I'm going back a little bit because I'm sure that students would be interested. We talked about the sports scholarship, but does UGA offer any merit-based or need-based scholarship? Do you know?
Yes, there are a ton of scholarship opportunities at UGA.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they definitely have a lot of need based. I
Mm-hmm.
got a
Mm-hmm.
merit based scholarship. So because I was applying as an out of state student, I
Mm-hmm.
got a scholarship that allowed me to pay in state tuition instead of out of state tuition.
That's nice. Uh-huh.
And that was all merit based. So there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a lot of scholarship opportunities and ways to make college more affordable at UGA.
Mm-hmm. Did you also do any work on campus, the work study opportunities where you would earn a little bit to pay for your student, tuition or whatever books?
I had, it was a very casual on campus job, so it didn't
Uh-huh.
pay much. But I
Mm-hmm.
did have, I was a peer learning assistant, which is similar to
Mm-hmm.
being a TA, but I was working with students my own age, which is why
Mm-hmm.
it was peer learning instead of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for 3 years in a Native American studies class, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I got $500 a semester for it. So it was definitely enough to like cover my books and some school supplies and even some of my like rent or dining hall costs.
Oh, it's very good. Thank you. Going back to student life, that's more funny than money,
Yes. And we also have a lot of Greek life organizations. So this could be the traditional social sororities and fraternities that you've probably seen on TV and in movies.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also a lot of different types of Greek life organizations at UGA. So there's
Mm-hmm.
multicultural, which is people from like a similar background or similar background or culture. And they'll have all of the same social events, but also just like bonding within that culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we had academic and professional fraternities. So let's say, I don't think there was one for PR, but I know there was definitely one for business. So, like, if you were a business major, you could be in a business fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also had service organizations that were Greek life because they used the Greek letters and they had that like social aspect as well as the service aspect.
we do not have Greek life here. Is sorority just for girls and fraternity just for boys, or no?
So that becomes a complicated question. So in like the traditional social ones, a fraternity is just for boys and a sorority is just for girls. But then once you get into like the multicultural or academic or service ones, a lot of those are co-ed, so it's going to be girls and boys together. And a lot of times they're called fraternities, but girls are allowed to be in them too.
That is complicated. Okay.
Yes. Really, the only ones that I know of that were like segregated by gender were the traditional social ones.
Where they also live together, right? In that, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And it's kind of impossible to talk about UGA without talking about what us Americans call football. So it's the biggest sport on campus. It's what we're really famous for. We're back-to-back national champions and are really like kind of obnoxiously proud of that. So this was really like the thing to do on Saturdays in the fall. So our stadium holds 93,000 people and it sells out pretty much every week. It was a lot of fun to go to these games and really like embrace that school spirit and cheer on our team and hang out with your friends. And even if you don't know anything about football and maybe you don't even like it that much, it was still a really fun environment to be in. And yeah, it's just like, to me, this is like what I think of when I think of student life, is like being at these football games with my friends and just like really cheering on my school. And just like a little overview of my UGA experience outside of the classroom. So I had the opportunity to do internships as an undergrad. So I did 3 internships while I was doing my bachelor's degrees. I did them all at nonprofits because I knew that was kind of the path I wanted to go down. So during the summers, I would be working at a nonprofit and just really gaining that experience. Student organizations, I talked about that already, but I was really involved in 2 student organizations for all 4 years, and I got into leadership roles in those and really just like fully dove into them. And that's how I connected with UGA and the Athens community, and I made a lot of friends through that. I talked a little bit about being a peer learning assistant again or already. So I did that for 3 years, and that was so much fun. That was something I was really glad I got the opportunity to do.
Is it something similar to tutoring, the peer learning assistant?
So, yes. So there were like different types of peer learning assistants at UGA. There were some that were tutors. Mine was more of a teaching assistant role. So I went to the class and I helped run like a role-playing game that the professor did. So I was just kind of like an extra set of eyes to work with like a small group of students and help them understand how the game worked.
And how did you apply for such a job?
I got lucky with it. So I took this Native American Studies class my freshman year, and the peer learning assistant who had been working with the professor was graduating.
Okay.
So we did a new one, and I asked if I could be his new peer learning assistant, and he said yes. And then because he had already said yes to me, I just needed to like submit. There was an application, but it was like I already had the position because he wanted me. But there were people who didn't go down that route. So you could just like apply to be a peer learning assistant, and there were a bunch of different opportunities. And I think you could either like pick a specific one you were interested in, or just kind of say that you were open to whatever they wanted to match you with.
Okay, cool.
And studying abroad is a really big thing at US colleges. So I was lucky enough to get one in before COVID. So I did a service learning study abroad for 4 weeks in Stellenbosch, South Africa, which is close to Cape Town. So I took 2 classes with UGA professors and other UGA students, and it was service learning. So we would take our classes and then we would go work with a local NGO and help tutor middle school students from the community. And then once we were done with classes, we got to do cultural trips to Botswana and Zimbabwe before returning to the US.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Yeah.
And that's all I have. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sydney, for walking us through public relations major in the United States. Guys, if you have any questions for Sydney, feel free to email me at advisor@fulbright.cz, or you can send me a message on EducationUSA Czech social media accounts. I'm happy to connect you with Sydney, and I'm sure that she will be able to answer any of your questions regarding the major, regarding studying at the University of Georgia, or regarding whatever work experience you had on campus. So thank you so much for watching, Sydney. Thank you again. It was very informative, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Take care.